Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai. This is going to be a lesson based off of archaeological proof of the Bible. Because you have a lot of people out there, whether they call themselves Egyptologists or other people, mainly Egyptologists or atheists or different other denominations of different beliefs, free thinkers, and others that that don't believe that the Bible is valid, that there's no evidence of the Bible outside of the scriptures, and that there's nothing that gives credence to the Bible except for the words that are written in the Bible, which that should be sufficient, it should be enough, but for some people it ain't. What you're looking at right now is what's called the Mesha Stele, which is also known as the Moabite stone. Now, one thing to learn about this stone here is that this was found back in the 1800s. So the Bedouins found it, and a so-called Anglican priest, I believe he was, by the name of Frederick Augustus Klein, was given the discovery, that he so-called discovered it back in 1868, where he was led to it by a Bedouin. Now, what was going on is they were trying to negotiate a price, but just before when they so-called discovered it, they did what was called a paper squeeze, like paper mache, of the impression of the stone, and that's how they supposedly saved some of the writings on it. Which Tazaryak, he did a debate with Polite, where he destroyed Polite, and he brought the point out about those paper squeezes, but that's what they did with this stone, the Mesha Stele, and what happened was while they were negotiating the price, whether or not they came to a conclusion on the price or not, what they did was there were disputes going on about the ownership of the stone, and what the Bedouins did was they broke it up in dozens of pieces. They just smashed it up. These archaeologists, they found certain parts of it, but they didn't find the whole stone. So what you see before you is the actual stone recreated. Now, the portions here that you see that are in like a light brownish stone around here, here and there, this big piece in the center here, this is all part of the original stone. Now, the dark brown parts that you see, that's part of the recreation, all right, of this Mesha Stele. Now keep in mind, that we don't need stuff like this to verify what the scriptures say, to believe what the scriptures say, but we use this, because this is in the scriptures, this is a part of the scriptures, so we use it, just to make a point. Now, when you read the inscriptions, it's all written in Paleo-Hebrew, because the Moabites spoke Paleo-Hebrew. All nations on the planet at one time spoke the Paleo-Hebrew before the languages were changed. Okay, so now what I have here is the actual translation of the stone from the Hebrew, and I read through through some of the parts of the stone, and I could pick out certain words of it, to know if they were going off or not. So the translation says this, and in highlights, I have highlighted some of the key words that we're going to use for just to show you that this is something that's of the Bible. This is a source outside of the Bible that mentions Israelites, that mentions Israelite kings, that mentions the Most High, that mentions like a tribe in Israel, that mentions a king in Israel, or a line of kings in Israel. So I just want to read this real quick. I am Mesha, son of Chemosh. Now, Mesha was a king in Moab, all right, and he called himself a son of Chemosh. Chemosh was the god of the Moabites. Yati, the king of Moab, the Dibonite. That's the line of the lineage he came from, and there was actually a a dynasty of Deban. You know, you had, like, I believe it was 4 rulers that ruled in that particular line. My father was king over Moab for 30 years, and I became king after my father, and I made the high place for Chemosh in Quarko, because he has delivered me from all kings, and because he has made me look down on all our enemies. Now you got to remember, when you go back into the history of the scriptures, the Moabites were subject unto Israel, beginning from the time of King David. You know, so there was a point where each nation would liberate themselves from the hand of other nations, and that was the case with this particular king. He had liberated himself, which is really the Most High, from the hands of Israel. It says Omri was the king of Israel. Now Omri is a king in Israel, and during the time of King David, and the line of kings that came after King David was with Solomon, Rehoboam, and other kings. They were still in slavery under Israel. So it says Omri was the king of Israel, and he oppressed Moab for many days. Now, from my understanding of history, the Assyrians called Omri, this was a name that was used for kings in Israel, you know, especially that came out of that particular line. All right. So it says, and he oppressed Moab for many days, for Chemosh was angry with his land, and his son reigned in his place. And he also said, I will oppress Moab in my days, he said so. But I looked down on him and on his house, and Israel has been defeated. Now here goes this is the first part, Omri, king of Israel. And then you have the second mention. This is first, it's a mention of a king in Israel in the scriptures. Then you have the mention of the name Israel itself within this Mesha Stele that we saw here. All right. It says, it has been defeated forever, and Omri took possession of the whole land of Medeba, and he lived there in his days and half the days of his son, 40 years. But Chemosh restored in my days. You know, and that was a rebellion that took place of the Moabites that broke the yoke from Israel. You know, but keep in mind, we're just dealing with the points. This is his story, the story of Mesha, king of Moab, about what took place and what was happening in those times. It says, and I built Baal Meon, and I built a water reservoir in it, and I built Quiryatan, and the men of Gad, which is the tribe of Gad, lived in the land of Atarat from ancient times. And then when you look at the map where Moab is, you'll see Edom in the far south, then you'll see Moab, you see Ammon, and then you see Gad, Reuben, and half the tribe of Manasseh that all lived in that area on the other side of the Jordan River. So they mentioned the tribe of Gad. It says, and the king of Israel, they go to name Israel again, built Atarat for himself, and I fought against the city and captured it. And I killed all the people of the city as a sacrifice for Chemosh and for Moab. And I brought back the fire hearth of his uncle from there, and I brought it before the face of Chemosh in Quiryat, and I made the men of Sharon live there, as well as the men of Maharit. Now, one key to remember is that this was something that was written, you know, by the king of Mesha, or Mesha, the king of Moab. And these other nations, whenever they would write stuff about themselves, what they would do is they would embellish. You know, they would embellish their victories. You know, and that was a big thing among them. It says, and Chemosh said to me, go take Nebo from Israel. There goes the name Israel again. And I went in the night and fought against it from daybreak until midday. And I took it, and I killed the whole population, 7,000 male subjects and aliens, and female subjects, aliens, and servant girls. For I had put it to the ban for Ashtar Chemosh. And from there I took Yahweh's, which should be Yahweh's vessels, and I presented them before Chemosh's face. So keep in mind, this is a source outside of the Bible that's mentioning the names of Israel, the names of the Most High, the name of a king in Israel, the name of Israel itself, the name of a tribe, you know. It says, and the king of Israel had built Yahaz, and he stayed there throughout his campaign against me. And Chemosh drove him away before my face. And I took 200 Moabite men in its entire division, and I led it up to Jahaz, and I have taken it in order to add it to Debon. I had built Quarko, the wall of the woods, and the wall of the citadel, and I have built its gates, and I have built its towers, and I have built the king's house, and I have made the double reservoir for the spring in the innermost part of the city. Now the innermost part of the city had no cistern in Quarko, and I said to all the people, each one of you shall make a cistern in his house, and I cut the moat for Quarko by using Israelite prisoners. And you know, it's a little bit more, but the key points of what's highlighted here, you know, is all the mentions of Israelites and Israelite kings, tribes, the Most High's name. All right, now keep in mind that, like I said, this stone, some of it was recreated, some of it is actual stone. So what the so-called scholars would call a stone like this is unprovenanced, which means it's from an unknown source, which is bullshit, because you actually have part of the actual stone here that was found. This part here, they could say that about that, okay, because, you know, this was supposedly taken from the paper squeezes, you know, and recreated or reconstructed from them. So this can be said, that can be said of this. But this part here, this is an actual stone, because this was an actual stone that they found, and then what happened was it was broken up. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go through it, because it has 34 lines, all right? And then the highlighted parts, or the shaded parts, are the part of the actual stone that was found. You know, now the parts that's in white, these are the parts of the stone that was recreated, as you see here. You know, you have the light brown, which is the real stone, and you have the dark brown, which is the recreation. All right, so that's what we have here. Now, when you read through the stones, you have here Aymar Yah. Now, the word Aymar Yah is Omri, which is the king of Israel. So it says Aymar Yah Malak Yasha'Allah, and then now the part Aymar is in the recreated part. The Yah of his name is in the part that was actually found. But then you have the word Malak, and then you have the word Yasha'Allah, which means Israel. All right, and as you read on down, again you see the word Yasha'Allah, which is Israel, in this particular Mesha Stele, or Moabite stone. And you got all these guys that talk about that Israel never existed, that the Bible is fake, it's plagiarized, and all this other crap, right? Then as you read on down, Aymar Yah, which is the same king, Omri, which is part of it, majority of it is in the actual stone, and then one of the letters is in the recreation. All right, and as you read on down, you have the word Gad, or God, which is, you know, in the recreation. Then you have here Yah. Let me go to the next one. Allah, which is also the name of Israel again. But this is, like I said, this part of it is recreated and part of it is actual. And you have the word here again, Allah, and part of the recreation. But as you look at all these shaded spots, shaded places here, this is completely shaded. And what do you have here? The name Yahweh. That's the Most High's name. So if Israel never existed and the Most High never existed, why is this particular stone that's an outside of the Bible source mentioning the name of the Most High, mentioning the name of Israel, mentioning a king in Israel, if Israelites never existed? Then you have here on line 26 Yasha'Allah again, and this is shaded, so this is the actual part of